Have you ever felt utterly drained by someone's negative energy? As if their actions and words cast a dark shadow over your entire day. The toxic crowd, filled with critical comments and a pessimistic outlook, can make even the most radiant moments seem dull. But what if I told you there is a way to find tranquility amidst all the chaos? Today, we delve into the ancient wisdom of Buddha and the path to inner strength and serenity. This tale provides not just insight, but practical solutions to shield yourself from negativity and foster a peaceful environment. Join us as we tackle the challenges of dealing with toxic individuals, seeking comfort and empowerment in Buddha's eternal teachings. A monk, characterized by his soft speech and kind-hearted nature, found himself in a difficult situation with his friend Karan. Karan was not the easiest person to be around. He always had something negative to say, making it challenging for the monk not to take it to heart. Every time they met, Karan would moan, criticize, and rarely had anything positive to offer. The monk did his best to be a good friend, but Karan's toxic behavior began to take its toll. It wasn't just the negative talk. Karan seemed to take pleasure in belittling the monk, often mocking his ideas and dismissing his feelings. The monk felt trapped in an endless cycle of trying to appease Karan, only to be put down again and again. The monk began to realize how this friendship was affecting him. He often felt sad and experienced the heaviness in his heart. His other friends and family started to take notice too, asking, "Why do you spend time with Karan if he makes you feel so bad?" The monk didn't have a good answer. He just felt obligated to be there for Karan, even though Karan wasn't there for him in the same way. One day, after an especially tough encounter with Karan, the monk decided he had enough. He needed help and wasn't sure where to turn. That's when he remembered an old sage who lived at the edge of the village, renowned for his wisdom. People said he had a way of making sense of life's most complex problems, with a mix of hope and anxiety. The monk decided to visit the sage. The journey to the sage's hut was a long one, giving the monk plenty of time to contemplate what he would say. As he approached the hut, he saw the sage sitting outside, eyes closed, with a peaceful smile on his face. The monk hesitated for a moment, but then, gathering his courage, stepped forward. The sage opened his eyes, and upon seeing the monk, greeted him with a warm, knowing smile. The monk sat down beside the sage, took a deep breath, and began to tell the sage about Karan and how the friendship made him feel. The sage listened quietly, his gaze reflecting deep understanding. Just talking about it brought the monk a sense of relief. He hadn't realized how much he needed someone to listen. As the monk finished his story, he looked at the sage, eager for some words of wisdom. The sage nodded thoughtfully, then spoke. "What you're facing is not just about Karan. It's about how you allow his actions to affect you." The monk leaned forward, eager to learn. Buddha spoke of four noble truths. The sage continued. The first truth is that life has suffering. It's part of everyone's experience, just like your struggle with Karan. The monk pondered this. Indeed, he had seen everyone around him face some form of difficulty or pain. The second truth, the sage went on, is that we suffer because we want things to be a certain way. We cling to these desires. In your case, you wish Karan to be kinder, more positive. But he's not, and that causes you pain. The monk nodded. He had always hoped Karan would change, but he never did. The third truth, the sage added, is that there is a way to end suffering. It's by letting go of these desires, these attachments. The sage's voice was gentle yet firm. But how do I let go? The monk asked, his voice filled with curiosity. That's where the fourth truth comes in. The sage replied. Buddha gave us the Eightfold Path. It's like a map to help us live better lives, free from suffering. The sage then explained the Eightfold Path, discussing right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Each part of this path helps us live in a way that brings peace and goodness. The sage said, for example, right speech means speaking truthfully and kindly. Imagine how different your conversations with Charon might be if you both followed this principle. The monk listened intently, as if seeing a new way to live, a way that could free him from the hurt and frustration he felt with Charon. But remember, the sage added, this path isn't just about dealing with others. It's about changing yourself, how you think and how you act. It's about finding peace within, no matter what happens around you. The monk felt a spark of hope. Perhaps he couldn't change Charon, but he could change how he reacted to him. He could choose to remain calm, kind, and detached from Charon's negativity. As the monk left the sage that day, he felt lighter, as though he had found a new way to navigate through life's storms. He had much to ponder, much to change within himself. But for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to try. The monk first focused on the Eightfold Path, especially right speech and right action. He began paying more attention to how he spoke and acted around Charon. Instead of reacting immediately to Charon's harsh words, the monk would pause, take a deep breath, and choose to respond calmly or not at all. This was difficult. Many times, the monk wanted to retaliate or argue, but he kept reminding himself, if the sage's advice, peace starts from within. The monk also tried to better understand Charon, considering the Four Noble Truths, especially the part about how suffering is a part of life, and how we can end it by understanding its roots. He realized that Charon's behavior might stem from his own struggles and pain. This didn't excuse Charon's actions, but it helped the monk see him in a different light, not just as a toxic person, but as someone suffering too. The most challenging part for the monk was learning to set boundaries, a concept he learned from the principle of right intention. He knew he couldn't change Charon, but he could change how much he allowed Charon's behavior to affect him. Setting boundaries meant sometimes saying no to Charon or choosing not to be around when Charon was overly negative. The monk worried this might end their friendship, but he also knew he had to protect his own peace. As days passed, the monk noticed something. The more he practiced Buddha's teachings, the less power Charon's negativity had over him. It wasn't that Charon changed. It was the monk who changed how he dealt with the situation. There were moments of frustration, of course, but the monk kept returning to the teachings, using them as a guide. One day, Charon asked the monk why he seemed different, more peaceful despite the usual challenges. The monk smiled and shared a bit about Buddha's teachings and how they helped him see things differently. Charon didn't say much, but the monk could tell he was contemplating it. The monk's journey had been transformative. As he walked back to the sage, his steps were lighter, his heart more at peace. The turmoil caused by his toxic friend Charon no longer weighed heavily on his soul. It was as if the monk had shed a heavy cloak of confusion and distress, emerging more resilient and wise. The sage greeted the monk with a warm, knowing smile, as if he could see the change that had occurred within him. The monk thanked the sage for his guidance and shared how the teachings of Buddha had begun to reshape his perspective on dealing with toxic individuals. Buddha's teachings are like a lantern in the dark, the sage said. They don't remove the darkness, but give you the light to find your way through it. The sage went on to explain how each aspect of Buddha's wisdom related to handling toxic relationships. He spoke about the concept of impermanence. Everything changes. This truth helps us understand that even toxic behavior is not permanent. Your friend's behavior, your reaction to it, they can change. The monk nodded, remembering the times he felt trapped in Charon's negative spiral. Understanding impermanence had given him hope and patience. Then the sage touched on loving kindness. It teaches us to have compassion, he explained, even towards those who are difficult. This doesn't mean you accept bad behavior, but you approach it with a heart that seeks to heal rather than to react. The monk recalled how he had started to view Charon with more empathy, understanding that his toxicity was a reflection of his inner turmoil. It wasn't about condoning Charon's behavior, but responding to it with compassion rather than frustration. The sage also spoke about suffering, understanding that suffering is a part of life helps us recognize that everyone, even those who are toxic, are often acting out of their own pain. This understanding can foster a sense of connection, reducing feelings of anger and resentment. The monk had seen this in Charon. Behind the facade of negativity was a friend who was struggling. This realization didn't excuse Charon's actions, but provided the monk with a broader perspective. Finally, the sage discussed moral conduct. Buddha's teachings encourage us to act with integrity, regardless of how others behave. This means setting healthy boundaries and choosing actions that align with your values. The monk understood this well. He had learned to set boundaries with Charon, not as an act of hostility, but as a necessary step to maintain his peace and self-respect. The sage concluded, Buddha's teachings do not offer a direct solution to every problem. Instead, they offer a way to view and handle life's challenges with wisdom and compassion. The monk felt a deep sense of gratitude. The wisdom he had gained was not just about dealing with Charon, but about a way of living. He thanked the sage once more, promising to carry these lessons forward in his life. Our journey through the forest of relationships may be full of challenges, but equipped with Buddha's wisdom, we can find our way. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe.